Hello and welcome to the latest of my inside tracks. Today I'm going to share with you about an event which hasn't occurred for 29 years, and that is the Sun in the sign of Taurus linking with Saturn in Pisces. So it last occurred on the 30th of April 1994. But moreover, the economic conditions then were very similar to those that are really starting to bubble up now, particularly in terms of bonds. Bonds are an economic instrument. Obviously, the stock market takes a lot of people's attention, and if equities, as they're known, are doing well, then that gives people confidence around their pensions and so forth. But of course, there are lots of complex different ways that money is traded and distributed these days. And what's happened is, because interest rates have been so low for so long, a lot of products have been marketed with a return based on those low interest rates. And something similar happened in 1994. So a lot to share with you. If you're a returning visitor to my channel, thank you so much for joining me once more. If you're new here, it's great to have you with us. This is very much a community, so please do share any thoughts you have. I do interact with each one. But also, I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. And just two other things. If you would like to get your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning, please see the link below to subscribe. And if you would like to understand having a one-to-one with me, please see below to check out my testimonials. So the Sun forges a sextile with Saturn on the 25th of April at 10:47 a.m. Universal Time. I've based my calculations on Greenwich that we can all collectively relate to, and the last time it did occur, as I mentioned before, was back in 1994. But the Sun in a sextile to Saturn can actually be very constructive. If we think about the Sun in Taurus, it's asking us to get our base well established. It can be very much to do with everyday money. It's about also being balanced in terms of our ins and outgoings. Of course, the sign of Taurus is ruled by Venus, so our appreciation of the good things in life can be heightened, but Saturn acts as an anchor and reminds us of our responsibilities and obligations. So the balance between the two of them is very realistic. It's asking us to really decide on what's essential. But of course, Saturn is the planet of structure, but also of limitations. And in the sign of Pisces, that structure can be watered down so much. So it can lead at times, when people have Saturn in Pisces in their natal charts, to periods of despondency, low vitality. And I feel that these energies can actually work their way into our overall consciousness, particularly in terms of the uptick that there's been around the cost of living and the reality of how that's affected us. So it's going to be important to try to keep things very steady at the moment and not do anything that's too flamboyant and rash. And the sign of Taurus can be very much about consumption, but at the present time we do have Mercury in retrograde, the North Node coming to the end of its journey in that sign, but very close to the Sun, and therefore linking to Saturn too. So I think that's very symbolic. But we do have the rather disruptive energies of Uranus. So all of this gives us an opportunity to think about our past experiences, because the sign of Pisces is very much a culmination sign. It's the last of each of the zodiac signs, the 12th. So all the experiences over the last 29 and a half years, which is the entire circle of the planet of Saturn, are really coming up to the boil. But when we look back and we see that there was that bond market crash then, I know some of the people that chat to me on YouTube have been very astutely aware of the weakness around bonds, because governments predicate their costs very much on bonds, and they have been very concerned that a big black hole is developing because governments through COVID have used a tool called quantitative easing, which is basically meaning printing more money in order to pay people, so the whole financial system didn't grind to a halt when COVID really hit home. So I think that this event is really asking us to take stock of all the things we've learnt in the past, to revisit some of our memories, even if they've been more difficult ones, and think about how we can still use the compassion of Pisces in the way we approach things. Because when people do have Saturn in Pisces, they can be, very, very kindly, very sacrificing, really go out of their way to help other people, sometimes to their own cost. But I feel that because there's all that energy in the sign of Taurus, which is much more about appreciating the good things in life, well, perhaps we're being reminded about the ground, roots, growing our own vegetables, buying produce locally where possible, perhaps even making much more use of home cooked foods rather than processed foods, which are probably not so good for us anyway. So we can get back to a more naturalistic way of being. That helps to prepare us and dig in for some of the headwinds that we may endure from what could occur with this bond issue. Also worth mentioning that Saturn is very much about rolling our sleeves up and applying ourselves. It's the ruler of two signs, domiciled ruler of Capricorn and the co-ruler or co-regent of the sign of Aquarius. So it's asking us to be very sustained, very applied. Perspiration tends to bring a reward as well as application. It's not just always being caught up in living in the moment. So we're being all asked to be less hedonistic around our lifestyles, I essentially feel. Also worth mentioning that Earth carries water, so we've got a kind of reversed receptiveness here, because obviously the Earth of Saturn is carrying or is carried by the sign of Pisces, which is water, but of course the Sun in Taurus very much about Earth. So Earth does conduct water really well, like the bottom of a riverbed. So if we can listen to our instincts, our intuition, in terms of the financial decisions that we make, that we stay solid, that we don't jump to any conclusions, we're very systematic in our approach, we do apply ourselves, we embrace those old-fashioned but very positive concepts of thrift where possible. I'm not talking about if you really haven't got the money to pay for things, that's truly scary. But if you have got some choices to make, there are some choices we can all make at the moment to simplify life, Saturn, be much more grateful in some ways for the blessings that we do have where possible. And this particular influence is just a reminder to get a lot more grounded in our approach than perhaps we have been for some years now when it comes to all the good things in life. Now, if you would like to understand how serious astrology can impact upon your situation, if you give me 3 pieces of your personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can produce for you your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far, the positive ones, but also the more challenging ones, and you can get a much more intimate understanding of those. In my special package of 30% off, you will also get your 12-month personal forecast, totally unique to you, which can give you searing insights. If you don't know your time, I also now produce a special package based on the Sun as being the ascendant. These solar charts are great if you're very much into watching your sun sign videos on YouTube. But the same package, 30% off, please see the link below. Thank you so much for joining me. Please do like, comment or subscribe, and take care for now.